We're here, we're queer, and we will continue to change the world. Welcome to Queer Changemakers. I'm your host, Justin Mezzapin, pronouns he, him, and each episode will share stories of LGBTQ plus individuals who are taking action to make a difference in our communities and beyond. Welcome to another episode of Queer Changemakers. Today, our guest is Sampson McCormick. I'm so glad to have you and to have this episode. How are you today?
Doing great. It's such an honor and pleasure to be here chatting with you. And it's going to be a great conversation.
I've known you for, I don't know, 15 plus.
I think longer than that. It's been longer than that.
It's been a long time. Back when you're here living in the DC area, and now you're in LA.
Even that was, so I left DC 12 years ago. So that's already been 12 years. So who knows? It's been a long time.
Who knows? But it's been great. I've go to your shows from back then and even now. Whenever you're in town, I come and visit. So it's always a good time and always good to support. It's always good to support friends and to see all the things that you're up to. So with that, do you want to give the audience a little information about, hey, I'm Sampson and here's what I'm doing these days?
Oh, these days, still performing comedy around the country. As of this year, I have been doing it for 24 years. Started when I was 15 in DC. And also now producing more online. I don't like the word for content, but I'm old school, but that's the word we're using now. So I guess producing online content. And I'm old school, we call it media. So producing media and content. So media is a meal, content is a snack. We serve meals over here, okay? And producing films and documentaries, it's really important to not only tell particularly Black queer stories, but also provide opportunities for other Black queer artists and people who have voices and talent that need to be amplified.
Awesome. Okay, so definitely going to get into the media part, but just want to talk to a little bit more about the comedy. Can you share a little more about your journey into comedy and just like what it's been like these decades for you?
Oh, yeah, it's decades. And before we know it, it'll be 3 decades. So one thing it is important to highlight because we see so much, particularly Black queer expression now, which I'm happy to see, but I am definitely one of the Black queer comedy pioneers for sure. And also during the golden age of Black YouTube, creating content back then. So a lot of the perspective that I have gained has come from enduring a lot of the struggles that do come with being a person of, Black gay identity in this industry. So I would say, working to create more space. Of course, when you start, it's all about you, but it was so hard and it has been such a challenge that I recognize I don't want anybody to work as hard as I've had to work because I've had to work extremely, extremely, extremely hard. And I think that if you are talented, if you have a good work ethic, and if you want to do things that contribute to the greater good of society, you shouldn't have such a hard time. Like life should be enjoyable, but to keep this short, it's come with a lot of sacrifices. A lot of my late teens and 20s and early 30s were me not getting to have sex and not getting to date, not getting to do a lot of things that my friends and a lot of other people were doing because I had to work that hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I quite agree with this idea that, if you're Black, you got to work 10 times harder. If you're Black and gay, you got to work 10 times harder. Because it's such a blanket statement. It doesn't explain anything. The issue is, number one, a lot of self beliefs that we have. And, being from DC, one advantage that I did have was growing up there in the 80s was the city was about 80% Black or something like that. It was very, very
Yeah,
heavy
let's see.
Black population. It was chocolate city.
Yeah.
And so I grew up seeing Black people own everything. I saw Black people own houses. I saw Black people employing other Black people. I saw Black gay thousandaires and millionaires. And so that let me know that I could do anything. However, um, on the flip side, I also heard things like, oh, you're dark skinned, so you're not attractive. I remember hearing all the time, like when I was 4 and 5 years old, oh, nobody thinks dark skinned boys are cute. Your nose is too big, your eyes are too big. And so you internalize that. And then fast forward in our gay community where everything is so superficial, you really have self esteem issues, self worth issues. Not only did that affect my ability to believe that I was worthy of things like success, but it definitely affected me being able to choose partners that were smart for me. You know, we can get into that later, but I think that's another reason why I did not date much. Anyway, so there were a lot of really internalized issues that I had to work through. There are a lot of issues that we have to work through as people of color and as queer people. And those things do affect every area of your life, including your career. Now, when it came to business, there weren't really many markets for queer comedians in comedy, although there had been white comedians and comedians who were in San Francisco who played in those markets. You had like the Tom Amianos, Margaret Gomez, Karen Williams, who's a Black lesbian comedian who's been around like 45 years. But they played to gay markets. They played to Mishfest and Pride. And sadly, when the AIDS epidemic hit, there were a lot of charity events and things like that. And those are the audiences that they played to. But as far as those 5 shows that you get a weekend at comedy clubs, there had never been a market made for that. And so that was really challenging. And to keep this short, there were certain barriers around that. Like, we don't grow up learning financial literacy. We don't grow up learning a lot of the skills that you do apply in business and that sort of thing. So it's just been a lot of learning. And I've never been afraid of failure. I think the reason why I've been able to do this for 24 years is because I'm not afraid of failure. It's been a lot of failure and shortcomings, but that's never bothered me.
There you thanks. Come on. I like the long, just long perspectives
It's
and
so much. I mean,
some of
yeah.
those beliefs and ideas. Like, I was at a talk a few weeks ago, and a lot of Black people in the room, Black person, we might have been on like a topic. And they mentioned that saying, right? It was like, you know what they say, you have to work, and then the rest of the audience just like chimed in, like it was church and a scripture or a song. It was like that thought is just in there. That thought is in your head, and everyone just knows it, which is
And they don't say why. And so if you aren't getting to why, I think a lot of us go into the world believing everything is against us instead of, oh, okay, I need to learn financial literacy. When I did that, I was able to produce my own events. I was able to, start building a business and that sort of thing. And also recognize it was important to employ other Black people and other Black gay people and other minorities. I couldn't be the only one. Like, it was that hard. I was like, it's wrong to try to be the only one because it's that hard.
yeah. So I want to talk more about that. But before there, you talked about how hard your journey has been over time. And are there a couple short stories? Are there a couple short stories you can share, like inflection points, or someone who helped you along your journey? Or just places where it was like, man, I overcame this one challenge because I learned this new thing?
Mm. So, three, and I'll keep them short. So, one experience that sticks with me till now is my second grade teacher, Miss Diane Walters. Miss Diane Walters, she was this white lady, and again, I grew up in the DC, PG County area, and we only saw white people on TV, and when we saw them on TV, they were lame, our cops, or they were getting beat up by black people. And so she was only the second white teacher that I had. My kindergarten teacher was a white lady, and we grew up learning like not. I didn't learn to hate white people, just that we were better than them,
Hmm. Yep.
and which is horrible. But I mean, yeah, that's what we heard. Like they can't dance, they can't this and that, and so that's not the healthiest thing to teach a kid either. But anyway, I went to Miss Winecoop's class, who was my kindergarten teacher, ran her class.
Hmm.
Ironically, one of the first boys that I remember having a crush on was this white boy named Richard Brown. I love me some Richard Brown. He was this cute blonde hair white boy. Oh, anyway, and ran her class. And so the second time I had a white teacher was second grade, Miss Walters. And I remember I first saw her. She was a short white lady. I said, I'm going to run this class. And I think she was able to read that. She was like, no, you're not. And she knew exactly what I needed. I've always been a quick learner, diagnosed with ADD when I was a kid. And so it was on Ritalin. And she would have conversations with my mom because, for the first semester, I got like all D's or something. They put me on Ritalin. So I came to class and I would just be, normally I would be standing on the desk and cracking jokes. And I would come to class and just stare at the wall. And she didn't like that. So she asked me, she said, are you on medication? I said, yeah. And she talked to my mom about it. And so she told me one day during lunch, she said, I'm going to talk to your mom and I'm going to tell her to let me give you the medication when you come to class. And so what would happen is I would bring the pills to class and she would keep them in a Ziploc bag in her desk drawer. She was like, you don't need to be doped up during class. And so what she said, if you do your schoolwork every Wednesday, I'll let you stand in front of the class and tell jokes. And so she started doing that. And so by the third semester, my grades were up to like B's and C's. I missed the honor roll by one grade. Then by the fourth semester, I made the honor roll for the first time.
Mhm.
As a kid, after being told I was remedial, I was retarded, I wasn't smart, and it was just somebody who got me, who understood me. And so that taught me to not let other people define me. And it also taught me that if I put my mind to anything, I can do it. So that's one. The second one was faith. I remember I was in college and I was doing comedy shows. This was before I dropped out of college the first time. But I was not going to class. I went enough to pass the class, but I was like getting C's. I went up by the time I got out of high school, I just wanted to do comedy full time. But there was a lot of pressure on me to go to class. So I was attending Bowie State University, which is a historically Black college in Bowie, Maryland. And so after class, I would go do comedy shows. And I remember I was flat broke because I had stopped going to class enough to get the financial aid or something like that. And I was just determined. I was like, I'm going to finish this semester and I'm going to keep doing comedy. And I remember I was broke. I was so broke that I had to go get like a loaf of bread out of the store. And I think I lived off of loaves of bread for weeks at the time. So I would take bread and I would put butter. I would get butter out of the cafeteria, eat butter sandwiches.
Mhm.
Then I got lucky. They put a toaster in the cafeteria. So it was toast sandwiches with butter. Um,
Right.
then I was able to get vouchers and I was eating potato wedges and breadsticks and bread every day. And I got sick as a dog. Anyway, that's besides the point. I was still going to do comedy shows. And I remember I was just broke. I really needed some cash. I go to this bar in Alexandria, Virginia. and it was a variety night. It was a bunch of like musicians and things like that, loud bar. Nobody's paying attention to anything happening at the and nobody's paying attention to anybody on stage. So, the musicians are up there, they're playing, and people are heckling them and ignoring them. They're coming off like, oh, this place is this is a horrible place. And I think I was like the fifth and final act of the night, comedy. And I knew it was going to go bad, but I was like, forget it. I'm going to get up on stage anyway and I'm going to do my thing. Just then I get up on the stage and I start telling my jokes, and the entire bar got quiet after the first couple of laughs. People were like, what's going on? Because the bar had been rowdy all night. And I got enough of that bar's attention to have a good set.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I got off stage, I left out the door. And this Ethiopian guy came up to me and he said, Randy, came behind me out of the bar and he said, oh my God, man, how long have you been doing this? And by that time I had been doing it probably 5 or 6 years. I said about 5 or 6 years. He said, oh, I love what you did. And he said, I want to give you this. And he told me he loved me or something like that. Cause I remember when he put the paper in my hand, I thought it was his phone number. Whatever he said, I thought he was hitting on me. I just remember that. And I was like, okay, thank you. Not to be out of pocket or nothing, but I just remember I was like, why is this old Ethiopian cab driver hitting on me outside this bar?
You're funny.
And I was like, I was about to throw it in the trash. And I just peeked in my hand, and this man had given me 2 $50 bills.
Wow.
For a free, he's just sitting in the bar getting drunk. And I have had things like that happen throughout my career. Like when I've been down to nothing, when it's always like a gig or somebody will like see my videos on YouTube and send some money. I mean, things like that. And then, so that's fate. And then the last one has been to believe in my talent. One thing a lot of people are obsessed with, and some of them are really great people, but a lot of people are really obsessed with celebrities. And it's understandable because some of them they can be some of your favorite people. But working in this business, what I would do is I would be like, oh, I need somebody to see me and validate my talent, give me an opportunity. And there was this very well-known Black gay celebrity at the time who I had considered a friend.
Okay.
And we were supposed to be working on a film together, long story short, and I brought him on. He came on because he had the money and he pushed me off the project.
Wow.
And I still ended up going, but they treated me really bad on set. And just that experience taught me I was only in that position because I thought that he was better than me because he got some opportunities that I hadn't gotten yet. And it taught me to stand up for myself and not be afraid to lose a gig. So those are 3. If you work hard, you can get it. Have faith. And then the last one is don't count yourself out. Nobody's better than you are.
Awesome. Thanks.
I tried to keep it short, but I mean, this is.
I mean, life, that's a hard part about life. Sometimes it keeps going. And especially with a journey like yours, I think there's been so much. Like when I asked that question, I did not know what I would be asking. And you went in a very beautiful direction that I didn't even think you'd gone. Which is great because I love that about these situations where it's just like life is so much bigger than we think, and we put people in boxes and be like, oh, this is probably the type of story I'm going to get. But
I would say this, even though I am a comedian and I've also had to expand in so many other areas, nothing about the journey I've been on has been funny at all. It's been it's really tested me and really, really made me build a lot of character.
Okay. Wow. I think I want to just go in there right on. So with that, working hard, having the faith and, believing in yourself. And also that part about other people aren't better or worse than you, right? We're all equal.
Yeah.
In your journey, some of the challenges, and I guess some of the more complicated recent-ish challenges of society these days. How would you describe some of the challenges and how have you worked through them?
Working through challenges. For one, knowing how to fight is a good one. I'm just playing. Um,
It's a
um,
great tell with the hang. Sometimes you have to throw hands.
yeah, you gotta meet people outside sometime. Um, you know, the current challenge, and I think people are starting to understand me again. It's
Okay.
strange. Several challenges. The more recent one has been sometimes just saying what needs to be said. We live in this very fearful climate. Everybody's fearful and anxious. And so, when you express to people what's going on or encourage them to move past the anxiety, and this is why, for some reason they attack you. One of the more controversial stances that I recently, I guess, took were ones around pronouns and ones around a lot of the LGBTQ social politics. I will preface this by saying a lot of my career, in addition to, performing, has been about showing up for community, however that needs to look like. I mean, it's what they call them receipts. The receipts are out there, plenty, receipts galore. And a part of what makes effective activism is the ability to be uncomfortable and also the ability to bridge gaps and lastly tell the truth. And so one of the earliest battles was marriage equality in DC. I was a member of the DC Coalition of Black Gays and Lesbians. And we would go down to the city council building and we would sit through these hearings and things. And at the time, a lot of gay bashings were happening in DC, early mid 2000s. And we had to listen to people talk about how disgusting we were and all these other things. And I remember having conversations with the other activists who were there saying, these people, they don't know any gay people. So we can't be down here yelling at them. Let's invite them to lunch. Let's paper their lunch. Let's go to their church. Let's be friends with these people. And they thought it was crazy, but it worked. It became a thing where a lot of us, we would show up, we would be screaming at each other. And then it became, hey, good morning. I'm going to get coffee. You want some coffee? And then it became, oh, they got coffee here. I didn't know they had coffee. I am tired. And we're like, yeah, we've been out here like all day, every day. So I'm tired. I know you're tired. And we would end up going to get coffee together. And these are people who are completely opposed to each other.
Yeah.
Getting coffee together, and we're coming back. Oh, this coffee is nasty. Let's throw it away. Let's go to Starbucks. It's Starbucks up the street. And, treat them to Starbucks. Then they see you as a person. And then what would happen is I remember a lot of them who were there. There were a couple ministers. There was one, I have a picture with him, as a matter of fact. It was in the newspaper. He's dead now.
No relation. No relation.
That sounds horrible. I didn't kill him, and I'm not celebrating it or anything, but he was one of the most opposed to marriage equality in DC, Pastor Harry Jackson. I remember saying good morning to him. People are like, why are you saying good morning to him? Because he is a person, because these people have never had a relationship with a gay person, another Black gay person. And a lot of these are Black people who think all gay people are white.
Mm.
And this is years ago. I listened to the arguments become less, these people are gross, these people are child molesters, and it just became, because of my religious beliefs, I don't support marriage equality,
Mm.
which is a lot better than these people are nasty and horrible.
Yeah.
And then we begin to be able to have conversations like about how that's your religious belief. And if you don't believe in gay marriage, then don't have a gay wedding. Don't marry a gay person. Don't come to my wedding. Don't have a wedding at your church. I say all that to say we eventually won marriage equality in DC. And I stand by it being because we were willing to have those tough conversations. We were willing to be uncomfortable. And now we live in a time where even if you tell somebody I'm politically moderate or I'm Republican or I'm Democrat or I'm independent, it could be a friend that you've had for 15 or 20 years and it will cut you off, which is, when we are losing really important relationships, I mean, that's further creating a divide in society. And it is making way for the robots to come. That's a little deep, but I mean, it's like
No.
now you can throw away a friend you've had for 20 years because you can get online and find somebody, you can say what you want them to say, and you can stay in an echo chamber where everybody's saying exactly what you, that's not the real world.
Yeah. Like I think about things today, and 4 years ago, there are a few friends on Facebook who said they're handing in their Republican designation, and I'm no longer Republican. This is what's going too far, and I get it, but I'm also like, I'm not going into the places you're going into, right? Like, you need to stay in there and be like, there are probably a whole bunch of Republican things you still believe, but if you leave, like, who are you leaving in charge? And like, who's gonna have the conversations with your aunt, your uncle, your cousin? Because I'm not. But you got to do that. I think it's a big challenge with social media the way it is, where it's like, hey, you're sort of seeing only things you want to see.
Yeah. And
Like,
it clouds people's view of what the real world is.
yeah, because people who disagree with me in really strong ways, I'm sure if I looked on their Facebook feed, I would see so many things that don't make any, like, what? Like, every so often I listen to, I'll turn on Fox News or read an article that I don't know where it's coming from. And it's like, if I read this thing and this is the type of thing that I read all the time, who knows what I would believe about people eating dogs in Ohio, and it's like these random off the wall things that are just like, oh, this is all you hear all the time. Like, I luckily I don't have cable anymore. I don't even know how to watch regular TV for the most part. But I was somewhere and then I saw local commercials during the election season and was just like, wow, this is because I'm getting it from Virginia. But like, people who live in other parts of the country, it's like, I can only imagine how many really weird, scary politics. I think the one thing I remember most about it was Tim Kaine in Virginia. It was so weird because all you had were these like, boom, 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 like red background, deep voice, scary voices, like all of the things all around politics. And then he had one that was just like quite full and like, it was almost like a drug commercial, how they're always happy and like going outside and running with dogs. And I was like, what? It's like the one ad of like 10 that was actually like slightly positive, that was more positive and not actually just like degrading everyone else who they disagree with.
You know, I'm gonna make three more quick points. As far as the commercials and the television and thing, also something else that I've learned about that, again, this goes back to conversation and not being afraid of people. Being a comedian who talks about Black gay issues and that sort of thing, I always thought that I thought, number one, I thought that I would be working in the gay community more because I did want to be the gay Richard Pryor for sure.
Oh,
Um, and you know, New York, San Francisco, LA, Miami. And the majority of my shows are in Iowa, Kentucky, uh, Texas, Florida, North Dakota, Montana, these little casinos and what are they? Ramada Inns and you know, they have like a comedy show at the Ramada Inn. And so they'll bring in like national headliners and things like that. And I do those. Colleges. I go a lot of places where I joke and say all the time, places where Black gay people go to vacation at all the time. I joke around and say but you get there and it's a game that Black people play. We always call it Count the Black People.
yeah.
And I'll joke around and say a lot of these towns that I go to, the only other Black person was my shadow. so, so you meet people and a lot of what we learn about each other and hear about each other could be solved by simply meeting each other. I go to these places. Number one, a lot of my shows fell out there because I never understood why I sell out in some places. You know, I go and it sells out because I think they see BET, he's been on BET, and they think it's going to be like, you know, comedy slam, motherfucker, something, you know, because white people do like that type of comedy. And then there are others who have been following me for years and will drive 3 hours somewhere to see me. And what I have learned is, again, it is okay to have differences. There will be people that be like, oh, I don't agree with being gay or whatever, but I like you. You know, I'm a Christian, you know, my family hates Black people. But I like you. You're the first Black person that I've met and that I like and talk to. And that's important. And so I'll make two more quick points. Something else that so I've never had a fear of people is what I'll say. As far as the pronouns, I am 40 and I'm just like, I don't understand it, but I will respect people for what they want to be called. But if you ask me, what do you think about it? I would say, I don't get being called they, them. I don't understand that. And I think I met somebody online who I was being problematic on Twitter. and
That's what Twitter's for these days, it seems. But
and so some they them slid in my DMs and said, I read your tweets and I know that you weren't intentionally being inflammatory. And I like the way that you stand your ground. I like men are male presenting people who stand their ground. And they said something else crazy that I'm not going to repeat. And they said, we should go to dinner or something like that. And I was like, well, I don't know how many of them you are, but just bring one of them, you know?
yeah.
But I got in trouble for basically saying, if we're in the community, a lot of us, we don't get it. We can't expect with straight people who know nothing about queer culture to get it. And so some people in the community now call me homophobic and transphobic and a bunch of other things because I basically spit it out. I said, you can identify as whatever you want to identify as, but the reality is especially if you are in the Black and you come outside looking like me, and I clearly look, it don't matter what I identify as, I look like a man.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I walk into a bathroom with a bunch of women, you know, and I go, oh, I identify, somebody's boyfriend might have a problem with it. And that's just the reality of it. And so I got called transphobic, homophobic, all these different things. I don't know how that works because I was basically saying a lot of the queer terminology that gets thrown around is thrown around by rich gay white people. They have the money to assert that politically. As Black people, culturally, our culture, what we have as a culture is to what white people have as money. Okay. So when we didn't have the money to buy groceries and that sort of thing, our culture was to have a block party where we all shared the little bit that we had. Our culture is getting together and celebrating our music, showing up the way we show up as different kinds of Black people, sure. But if you showed and you were a certain type of gay person, they were going to talk about you. That it doesn't mean that they hate you or anything. And sure, a part of growing up Black and gay in the hood or queer in the hood or a drag queen or trans, you might have to fight somebody, but you beat their ass one time, they're going to respect you. Or if you couldn't beat them up, there was always somebody, some Black women, somebody's uncle who would be like, I don't care if such and such is a bag. Y'all aren't going to treat him like that and y'all have a problem. Take it up with me.
Mhm.
There's always been that in the Black community. And so if you go into Black churches, if you go into Black institutions telling them I'm more woman than you are, I'm this and that, that's going to create a problem that we've never had in the Black community. And I was just saying, there is a difference between being a white gay person and them type of social politics and the type of social politics we're going to have in the Black community because we are Black first and we honor our culture first.
Wow.
And that's just real life.
Yeah. I had never heard that line that you said or thought of it that way, but like historically, white people have had all this money and we've had this thing called culture. And I
Yes.
never saw it as,
You're Black first.
as, because then every so often it's like people take Black culture so much, right? So it's like, why people take it, why it sells, right? I don't know, especially in this February month, it's like it's a different kind of wealth and abundance that others,
Yeah.
not even that they don't have it, but they don't know how to use it.
They don't
And
know
it's
how to use
so
it. And
interesting.
I will go even further and say this. My problem that I've had with a lot of white liberals, there are some genuinely good, and I wouldn't even call them white liberals. I would just say white people who get it. There's some of them, and they are on both sides of that political spectrum. But my problem with people who identify and operate in that white liberal space is two things. Number one, it's not the conservatives who are coming into the Black community and minority community stealing the culture and profiting off of it. They're not coming to urban neighborhoods, buying people's grandmama's house and stuff like that. Those are white liberals. Then they see you frying some chicken. They see you making some chai tea. They see you drinking Kool-Aid, and they have the money to go build a cafe, and they sell that shit for 5 times what it costs us to make it. Take a 20-cent pack of Kool-Aid and they sell that shit back to you for $10. And most Black people cannot afford to
Mhm.
pay $10 for no $10 mason jar Kool-Aid. And so they're the ones doing that. They come in, they do yoga, they open yoga studios and shit. And then a lot of the Black people are being displaced. And those are not conservatives. Those are white liberals doing that. And so when you say, okay, because we're more likely to be able to have conversations with them these days if they listen. Because if you are a Black person, if you're a Black gay person and you fit under, you know, that what's called DEI umbrella right now, and you say, sure, like, I mean, even if it comes down to this is what bothers me about people who identify as any political party, but particularly because I have grown up Democrat and not particularly been happy with what we've gotten out of the thing. I mean, it's always scraps. Oh, you might get reparations, keep voting. DEI, that's a scrap. Only 4% of Black people benefiting from that. It seems like you're always getting, hoping to get a scrap. And so when you say either, I don't want your scraps, why do you keep moving into my neighborhood? Why do you keep buying people's grandmama's house? Why do you keep pricing people out? If you really wanted to help Black people, you would help them buy property. You would buy the property and give it to them. You put programs in the neighborhoods that fund Black people's lives, that will fund Black creatives. Things like that. And so when you ask them, well, what about this? Or if you say, I don't like the way this politically has happened. And the whole point of political discourse is to create change. And if you're not getting change and you say, hey, why aren't things changing? That you're a bigot. Because I'm asking questions.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not helping anybody. Like you should be able to ask questions. It's like being in those abusive relationships where you say, I don't feel like you listen to me. I don't feel like you see me. You don't give me attention. If you aren't able to speak up in that relationship, it's going to be a horrible relationship. And right now, society has a horrible relationship with each other. Politically, it's a
Yeah.
horrible relationship.
Yeah. I appreciate your background and being in DC back then before DC was super officially cool, let's say.
What DC was cool back then,
I mean, it
that's
was,
when it was the
yeah.
coolest.
Another episode of this is going to be with someone who moved to DC in the 70s, older
Uh,
black kid, and it was like he was sharing stories and telling me things. I'm like, I can't even believe that. Like, what? Yeah, to be alive back then before phones and the internet, and but yeah, some of the stories are just wild. But,
oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah. Okay. Thanks for giving some of those perspectives, because I do think that having those uncomfortable conversations or just going through the discomfort and difference,
Yeah, I think
you'll just
everybody needs
figure it
to be
out.
called out.
Yeah. And I love that. And one of the good things about good comedians, I think there's a way to call something out into a conversation that can help people see something a little different.
Yeah.
I love the South Park every so often. And some, when they want to make a point, they go to the furthest place possible just to make a point. Like, okay, they went a little too far. That's a little too much. Calm down. But point is, they're not running for office, right? Like they're not making laws. They're
Yeah.
just starting a conversation and using humor to get that. Um,
I think it's ridiculous that we hold comedians to higher standards than we do politicians, than we do lawmakers. I get like last 2 years, I lost so many gigs because I said there is a difference. And people may not have liked the way I said it, but I was like, black gay people don't get to have white gay social politics and white queer social politics. And I said that, and I lost so many gigs for saying that. And what allowed me to survive it, two things. I really believe if you are doing things and you're doing them for a good reason, I believe even through whatever challenges, and I had never struggled like that financially, ever in my career. I've always been able to make money. But I believe that there's an expression, I think I heard Jane Fonda say it, if you do things and you know that you're on the side of the angels, you'll always be taken care of. And this is true. And I also know that I'm not saying it to be nasty. I'm saying it because it's the truth. And so I'm not going to let people intimidate me into not telling the truth. And so you have to be willing to take what comes along with that.
that's fair. That's fair. Like there's this quote. It's like people are doing the best they can, and like we're all on the same side, right? So even the person who's like really against you or us or whoever, whatever community, there is more good than them. There is more love in the world. And in theory, right? If you hold to something that is true or even that you believe is true and are able to be in that conversation around it, I can even be wrong, but learn more of the deeper truth that's happening. And if I
Yeah.
learn it in terms of truth and not someone telling me it's true, but like me learning to understand what's true, like it just makes it so much easier just to connect. Because I don't think anyone's ever been told something and says, "Oh, you're right. I'm going to change my mind like that." Like
It's not going to happen.
that's not life at all.
You can
But
let people evolve, again, this goes back to like when we were coming out, you might have to talk to your parents and say, hey, I know you were expecting this, but this is what my reality is. And your parents might not like it, but you had to leave room for them to evolve. And so in society now, that room to evolve is not there anymore. It's you need to change your mind right now. And if you don't, I'm not going to talk to you again. What, how does a person learn other than saying I was coerced, I was forced? That's not learning. That's not growing. That's not, I had this relationship with this person and I didn't, I didn't understand gay and I was, expecting this. And then one day their partner had to run in the house and use the bathroom and I wasn't going to let them in. And their partner had on these shoes that my uncle used to wear. And I had a memory and we start like, where is that? It's, leave room for people. Leave just this room for other people to be human because you want for you to be human. I always say that.
That's a good point. Yeah. And I just don't let that sit. I think just different situations where we're few people, few organizations, few communities. No, let me take it back. The louder people, the louder organizations, the louder communities don't always go with that. Don't always promote the leaving room for others.
Well, and they don't because these are the same people. And if I put that online, which I'm going to one day, I understand right now is not an easy time for people. So I don't like to get online and blast what I know is going on. But one problem too is a lot of the people who are being hailed as the activists and the people who are good for the community and stuff, they're horrible people and they steal money from the organizations that they work for. And they do it mostly for celebrity. But that's another conversation.
And sort of okay with that.
There are activists like who's a trans activist and who's threatened me a bunch of times in my inbox, threatened to stick her husband on me and all that type of stuff. And I was like, I'm not going to repeat what I said, but I was like, basically bring it on. And people like her only show up to make videos and stuff like that when something negative is going on. They show up to fan the flames. And then what'll happen is, because I said, she was a rough trans woman. Like she looked like she could beat somebody in the street. Like she's one of the people like you wouldn't expect her to be trans because you need to work security somewhere the way you look. But she, this boy got his, boy, he got beat up on his front porch for being gay in Atlanta. He was about 11 or 12 years old. And, they cut his hair. As a video went viral. They beat him up and smacked him all upside the head and stuff. And they called him all these names. And so she created a GoFundMe for this boy, raised about $12,000, never turned the money over to them. And next thing we know, she got these big perky boobs and her face is done and she don't look like she needs to work security no more. But she will do a rallying cry to get somebody else's livelihood affected, like mine, or somebody else who says, hey, this is why people don't agree with this, or this is my opinion on this. And it's not because I'm a bad person. It's just because this is how I understand it, or this is what the truth is. And I would much rather tell the truth and mean it for the better of humanity and be considered a bad person than be somebody who's saying all the things that sound right, but really be a piece of trash.
That's fair. I've heard that story. Also, sometimes social media rewards outrage, and sometimes people are outraged at things because they think it's the way to be. And it's not really like, who are you helping? Or even sometimes in my own personal circles, people may get on a soapbox and I'll be like, are you talking to me? Like, what? Like, what are you talking about right now? I get it. I know exactly what you're saying. You don't have to preach to me right now because we're not doing stuff. But if you want to, there are organizations you can take time out, skip brunch and go help.
Yeah.
But people are people. no matter where they are. Okay.
Mhm.
I didn't know where we'd go with this conversation, but I do want to talk about your media. You have some films that people can see in places. So,
Yeah. So been making films now for about 10 years. I transitioned. I still do comedy. I will plan to always do comedy, but I also had to transition into filmmaking because in order to sell tickets, you have to get on television. You got to do sitcoms. You got to do films. And those are things that I really wanted to do, but those doors were not opening. So I had to build the doors myself. And so the first thing I think I did was a documentary, which you can see on YouTube, called A Tough Act to Follow. And we got some great people in it. Sinbad is in it, the comedian, Adele Gibbons, Lunel, Karen Williams, um, Karen Ripley. Karen Williams and Karen Ripley are two like longtime lesbian comedians. They've been around 40, 50 years. Um, Karen Ripley, I think she said on there, like, you can tell like she looked like a dinosaur or something. Like, I forgot what she said. But it was basically just a documentary that highlighted some of the challenges that we face as minorities in the entertainment industry. Oh, Daryl Stevens from Noah's Ark is in it too. Then I did another film. This one I did not write or produce, but it was something that I really worked hard to help the director and writer, Shane Watson. He did a film called I Live Here. We shot that in San Francisco and it was nominated for an Oscar award in 2017. So huge accomplishment. And Shane is awesome. And he moved to Memphis and stopped making films. And I need to go to Memphis to get him because it was a great film. And then I wrote, produced Party and Play, which is on Amazon Prime. It is hilarious and crazy. We had a lot of film, it's Party and then the letter N, Play. That's on Amazon Prime. And then I produced another film called Love the One You're With, which is also on Amazon Prime. And that one, we did it. I spent like $8,000 in my own money to make that. And it ended up charting on the Amazon UK LGBTQ film list. It was I think it was like number 13 or something over there. And so to create an independent film and for it to, and number one, Black films typically don't go overseas. That's number one. Number two, to do a Black gay film, independent film, and for it to chart. Okay, number 13 on Amazon Prime overseas. For me, that was a big deal. And for our stories and our community, that was a big deal. And then there's another film I produced called B-Boy Blues, which is on BET Plus.
okay. Love it. When it comes to this comedy, right? So being on stage, telling jokes, um, being with an audience, and then making a film. What is something that you like about each of those mediums that you don't get in the other one? Right? They're two very different experiences.
I genuinely love people, and doing comedy is kind of the thing in my life. It's one of the things in my life that keeps me sober, sane, stable, organized. I really believe in putting on a great show. And I know in order to put on a good show, there's a certain way I need to show up and there's a certain way that I need to think. There's a certain capacity of creativity and intellect that I constantly need to be feeding myself and engaging with and interacting with. A certain perspective that I need to have. And it's just, I don't know, I think it's a soul muscle that I have to go work out like on a regular basis. Like that's a part of who I am. I've had to learn that I am not my career, but as many times as I wanted to quit comedy, because oh my God, it's not, I'm great at it. I do great. Like I can pull the funniest shit out of the thin air and take it and, but it's been like the business stuff and other stuff that's like, oh, why do I keep doing this? Because that's what makes it hard. And I think I say this very humbly that um, I think I deserve to be celebrated more for the work that I've done and the level that I perform on. I mean, you have to perform at a high level as a Black gay person in comedy. I mean, I think I'm naturally good with people, which helps, but also there's just a thing, I think people have certain expectations of you when you're performing, and think a lot of queer artists, but particular Black queer artists, say the same thing when I talk to them, because a lot of them call and they'll ask for advice and that sort of thing. And I, have heard them all say the same thing. They don't feel really supported by the community. And I've had to learn, I've always been able to do it, but really learn how to include all audiences in my comedy. So that is something I'm really, really great at. But it's just certain things you have to work through, and it's like, oh my God. And so for that, again, to go back to early in the conversation, I don't want any, and there's some already who've come up already. I support them. I wouldn't have been able to do that 10 years ago because it was so hard to get a gig. And again, you want to be the only one because there's fear. Like, if I don't get it, how am I? And it just became a thing where, number one, it was so hard to get work. And then I also saw a lot of these young queer comedians coming up, and they could get online. They could go viral and do different things. So they started getting stuff that I had been working years to get. So two things happened. It told me to be more supportive, and it helped me recognize, okay, well, if they found a way to get this, I can get it. And don't be a hater. Uh, I know it's a simple question you ask, but comedy is not just comedy. It's really taught me a lot, and it keeps teaching me a lot. And I just really love being with the people and seeing different parts of the world. As far as film goes, film, I just love it because I love culture. And when you create a great film, it's a great way to contribute to culture. And so, for instance, I remember going to see films like Pariah when Pariah was in the theaters. It's a lesbian film directed by Dee Reeves. I think that's her name. Uh, I remember I was living in DC at the time, and there's a theater in DC, East Street Cinema is downtown. Seeing this lesbian film sold out every night when we were told nobody wanted to see stuff like that. And then you just see like other people are coming in, they're getting to see this narrative they probably never seen before. And then you get LGBT people come in who finally get to see a story they can relate to, and it's well done, well written, and it takes you on this roller coaster ride of emotions. And 20 years later, you can say, remember that film Pariah? It was the same thing with Noah's Ark, Jumping the Broom. I just remember all those Black gay men being in a movie theater, and it was like, it was us, and the theaters were packed, and it was like, wow. It was the same thing with Dirty Laundry, which came out in 2006 or something like that. I remember, was I in high school? No, I had just graduated high school a couple years before that. So I don't know what I was skipping class. I was skipping. And went to see Dirty Laundry at Union Station. I don't know if that movie theater is still there anymore. It's not there anymore. That's a legendary movie theater. And Union Station in DC used to be the place to be if you were Black and gay on Friday nights. That was the spot. Forget a nightclub. Union Station on Friday nights was jumping. You could find boyfriend, you could find drugs. Everything was in Union Station on Friday night. I'm getting besides the point. But again, that was just a moment. It was a story that we could all relate to as Black people. They had the Black mama, the Black family, uh, and Moonlight. Moonlight was another one. I was living in San Francisco at the time, or Oakland, and I saw that film in Berkeley. It wasn't that many Black people in there for that because, Oakland is not the East Coast. But I remember it was a theater full of white people and still there to see a story about a Black gay man or whatever he was. And there was this Black people were screaming at the screen and stuff in DC and the other places where, excuse me, I saw these Black gay films. There's this scene in Moonlight at the end where a Black tells the other character, I haven't been touched by anybody since you, or something like that.
Right.
And I was sitting next to this old white lady, and I remember she said, well, she pulled out a tissue, and I just love seeing that in a theater. It's a much different thing than comedy. I love it too because I am funny and optimistic and things like that. But I also do have a very dark side. And my earlier years were not great. And, I've seen both heaven and hell in my life. And so I like film because I can express those other parts through film.
Yeah.
Because I love comedy, but I also like horror and psychological thrillers, and I like very dark subject matter. And so I like films because you can explore that there. You can see a little bit of that in Party and Play, and a little bit in Love the One You're With. And as I get more opportunities to create more film, it'll always be funny, but I'm going to explore it too.
Yeah, totally get that. I appreciate having that distinction there. It sounds like I love people. And one of the hard parts about horror and the darker sides of life is people respond to that. Is
Yeah.
it to share or to bring people to that place in person, like in an audience? That's, it takes I feel like it would take a whole lot to be able to do that.
Yeah, this is
Comedy.
another thing too. Because I have both, contrasting talents and things like that. Again, it's something that I had to like tap into because I went to see a slasher movie the other night and it was well done, but I recognized I don't like slasher movies. I like movies that you look at and I think the best scary movie, some people like blood and stuff like that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because Party and Play is a little bit of that. But the best scary movies are movies that you look at and it could happen in real life.
Yeah.
That's why, what's his name? Dahmer.
Mhm.
That's what made Dahmer so frightening to people on Netflix, was because it's scary. It's based on a true story, sure, but it could have been fiction and it's something that could happen in real life. Those are the best scary movies. If you punctuate it with comedy, it just makes it a bigger experience. And I think when you challenge an audience with tension, you challenge an audience with things that cause them to have conflicting emotions, if you make them laugh, they will forgive you for how dark it can get and stay along for the ride.
That's
So yeah, but I also am gonna do some stuff, like there does need to be like a Black Day Waiting to Exhale, and I'm pretty sure a couple of us are gonna create that type of thing. And Love Jones and those soul food, movies
mm,
like that.
yeah.
I'm gonna create some of those too eventually, but I really love playing in the dark sometimes. And I'm gonna, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. As you said that, I was like, ooh, like a thin line between love and hate.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get
The
some
gay
of those.
version in it. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah. Keep telling stories because we need them. We need them. And sometimes it's just great to be able to see new versions of things. And yeah, having a little more queer look on it. Yeah. So thank you for that. Okay. All right. Um, Samson, it's 2025, it's Black History / Black Futures Month. When you think about where we are, what is a vision you have for the next step of our Black community? What do you want to see in our Black futures?
It is my deepest desire for us to have a renaissance in Black culture of Black movies, Black music, Black tea, Black culture, Black community, where we get to thrive and shine and really progress as a community. When I tell people this, they tell me I'm crazy, and that's fine because I know I'm right. I think right now, politically and socially, is the best time for Black people than it's ever been. If we recognize the opportunity and start coming together as a community now, we will be stronger than we've ever been. We will be more creative than we've ever been. We will build something among ourselves that has never been built before if we would just recognize that and stop being afraid of coming together and making it happen. It will need to be something that is organized by people who are both dynamic and selfless enough to help make it happen. Uh, and to lead us in those directions or influence or whatever. This is not a one person thing. I think it'll just take people who understand that doing the work and some sort of way when this is happening over here and this is happening over here, some sort of way it just that energy connects in the universe and brings it together. Right now, I mean, I was thinking about this morning. I am pro immigrant and all those different things, but I think that Black people we have spent our time saving so many other people, so many other causes. And right now, none of what is happening has anything to do with us. Nobody's worried about us right now. We need to capitalize on that.
Nobody's worried about us, right?
While white people are fighting each other, white Christians and white non-Christians are fighting each other because that's what it's about, and it's over money and power. But right now is a beautiful time for Black people, and we just need to. And it's not even about civil rights or that. This is Black Renaissance time.
And love that. And love how you already started. Like I've got these new ideas. There's more things that you want to create and put out into the world, and not just create, but collaborate. And
Create, collaborate. I mean, it's if we had what we had back in the 60s and the 90s, now we will come back if we also recognize how important our lawyers are, our strategists are, our thinkers are, we will create something so powerful in this country that it will never be the same again. Right now, I'm telling people, oh, Trump this, Trump that. No, right now is prime time. Nobody's worried about Black people right now. We have never been so politically clear in our lives, and people, oh, DEI this, DEI that. 4% of Black people benefited from that. That was white women were benefiting from that. Black people, we've always made it. We will always make it. Can take thin air and turn it into the universe, and we are magic. Intellect. Even the dumbest Black people are smart. Even the dumbest Black people are creative. It's a blessing. As far as dysfunctional as it can be sometimes, it's a blessing. Prime time right now for us. We just need to stop listening to people. Oh, Trump this and Trump. Trump is not worried about us. I promise you, he's not worried about us. Prime time is now.
I love that. I love that. He also said, like, in the 60s and the 90s,
Mixed together.
and then that was 30 years ago, and 30 years before that. So the 20s will be it's about time for it again.
If we can do that, and it will the 60s, because culturally we were coming together. We were, the idea of the nuclear family, that the idea is great, but we've never had that. It was always somebody was being raised by their auntie, somebody was being raised by their grandpa, grandparents, their sister. Gays have always existed. We were roommates. We was raising our nieces, when grandma had nowhere to go, she would move in with Uncle Tony, and his best friend has been living together for 10 years. I mean, family comes in so many different varieties, and all that matters is that you are family. That's it. You don't got to be a wife and a husband and kid, even though I was raised like that. And I think to myself, how much easier it is to move through society like that, because it's a definition that's the acceptable definition. I remember I have a female friend. We were out, and I think we had a little boy with us, and I just remember how people were responding and things like that. And I am, outside of being gay, I'm a pretty traditional guy, and even being gay, Black people still, you gay? Wow, my mind is blown. Because, they just, to get to the point, just family. When I say family, us taking care of each other, we need to get back down to the church and start singing together again. If you don't go to church, I mean, even when we weren't at church, we used to get together on the front porch and we would do life together. We would dance together. We would drink together. We spent time with each other. We need that. That is what allowed us to sustain ourselves politically. Through that time, we were able to gain a lot of rights. We were able to make a lot of financial and political leeway. And unfortunately, I say this all the time, and I catch heat for this, but I do think one of the worst things for Black people was integration, because integration allowed us to be sold the idea that we had to be accepted by other people to be valid. One, no other culture does that except for Black people. You don't see no other culture. I mean, you see maybe some people come over here and they do that, but I'm talking about American culture. Is begging for anybody else to accept them. And I live in a neighborhood with a lot of Hispanics. They support each other, and I look at like just how they hire each other, how they work together. They're not begging nobody else to get nothing. A lot of them swim over here, and they lap Americans. Asians, they come into our neighborhoods. And why is it that Madam C.J. Walker was the first Black millionaire, but you got Asians in our neighborhood selling us Black hair care products? That's crazy. And integration sold us this idea that we had rely on other people's acceptance, and we needed to prove to them our value by spending our money there. So that took the money out of our communities. We are if you tell, you tell some Jewish people to go spend their money outside their community and watch how they look at you. Brilliant culture. Jewish people, Asians, Latinos, Hispanics, all of they do it. Why can't we do it? We need to get back to that, because when we were doing it, when we knew that we weren't allowed to go across town, and so we knew we had to, you know, sister Ella bakes bread in her house, and we had to go support Sister Ella. Sister Ella made enough money to go build her own bakery.
Yeah.
Now she's able to employ Black people. Now she's able to go open another one because business been so good. Now she owns a house. She's renting rooms to Black people, And then in the 90s, it was just the cultural renaissance. The music, we loved each other. The idea of Black love, Black television, which we have never seen. We've seen some stuff like that, but I'm not like in Living Single and Martin. We even had, even though he got in trouble, this was the 80s, the Cosby Show. I mean, Family Matters. So many of these great Black shows, and we still listen to all the music that came out back then. I mean,
Yep.
now is the time for us to blend the two of those. And if we do it right now, future generations of Black people will be set.
Love that. And I did not know where you would go with answering the question, but that answered it so deeply and expansively. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this Renaissance that I would say is about to start, but I think it's already started. It's already started, and it'll keep going.
Yeah. I have pretty strong faith in that.
Okay. All right. So
we just need to not fall into the trap of people telling us what political issues we need to be concerned about. Now it's time for us to be creating our own political agendas, spending money amongst ourselves, saving money, buying assets. Really, I don't know what the economy is doing right now, but I do know when inflation is high, it's best to buy assets instead of trying to hold on to your money. Any of that, just financial literacy, any of that. Right now, we don't need to try to save nobody else but ourselves. When somebody asks us, can you come march with us? No. Where were y'all when we needed y'all marching with us? No. No.
Yeah.
And if we do that, we will be respected more politically. We will be, if we start valuing our culture, other people, they don't value Black people, because Black people, we look down on each other. Somebody open up a business. Oh, I'm not going over there. Why? Stop that.
Mm-hmm.
People, when we start telling people, no, I'm not marching with you. No, I'm not voting for that. No, I'm not coming to spend my money over there. We'll be treated differently by the political system, by all of it.
Love that. And, saying no to people allows us to say yes to the creative endeavors that we want to do, that we already have the ideas of that need to get done.
Yeah.
Okay. And now a separate question, but similar, is when you think of our gay community, LGBTQ plus community, what's something that you would like to see in that aspect of our community moving forward?
Now that one, they cooked. I don't got that for that one. They cooked. I think the gay community, this is going to sound really bad. For the current generation of gays, the way that we treat each other, devalue each other, look at relationships and things like that, it may take us going a couple steps backwards to understand how important it is for us to truly have community. I don't want to say anything as devastating as the AIDS epidemic, but for some reason, when things like that happen, it gets people's attention enough to let them know we're all we have. And I think in our gay community, particularly, there is an epidemic of loneliness. Everything is, ain't nothing wrong with sex. Everything is sex. Everything is sex. How big is your dick? You said, how big is your dick? Oh, it's only 7 inches. That's why you say it. Everything is sex. Nothing is community. And it's sad because when we were dying, when we couldn't go to our families, when we couldn't get married, that's when we valued relationships. That's when we valued each other. That's where we saw each other as humans. That's when we had our clubs. We had our party nights. We're able to get married now. A couple of us are on television and everybody has lost their minds. And so with the gay community, it's going to take the community going a couple steps back to go forward. I think people in our community who are healthy and operate from a more sane place will be fine. But the community as a whole thinks everything is a big party, and it's not. Our lives in our community will look a lot different. And I say this because I thought that I had fully accepted myself as a gay person. And I recognized that I had not. And it was because even in my relationships, I would interact with people that I was dating with the way that we should interact in a heterosexual marriage. And I had to tell myself, you're not dating a woman. This is another guy. So loving another man looks different. It is different. That family is going to be different. The way that you expand community from your relationship is going to be different. If you're married with kids and you move into an apartment complex, you're naturally going to have an affinity, usually with the next door neighbors, if that's another family. For gay men, if we're two men living together or we live apart or whatever, the way we build and expand community looks a lot different. And so I don't know if we recognize that in our community, like the importance of friendships and family, and that sort of thing. And sadly, it seems it takes tragedy for our community to get that. And so I hope that does not happen, but it looks like something is going to have to happen to get our attention and let us know we need each other.
I see a lot of what you're saying. And I appreciate the idea of like, it's community, what's going to help us rebuild.
Lesbians
and deeply,
lesbians are going to be fine, but I'm talking about gay men. Yeah, because even straight men, they'll get together with their bros and they'll go out and drink beer. A lot of gay men don't do that. Like everything is, I need this hookup. Yeah, I was looking at an Instagram video. This dude said he went to go hook up with somebody who says he hooks up with 6 or 7 people a day.
Yeah.
So one person laying in your bed, you don't know them, you don't know what their hygiene is like. And I used use Grinder. I got on there one time. I said, let me check this out. The people on there, all of them don't have good hygiene. So you don't know what people are doing with their bodies. You don't know what their state of mind is. You got them running in and out your house every day, 6, 7 people you don't know, at the mall, in the bathroom, in the bushes behind the Walmart, all these crazy places. And for a lot of our men, that's how they experience connection. There's nothing like when you need somebody emotionally, nobody you can call. So you don't got nobody to call. you don't have a family, so I'm gonna go suck a dick to feel better. That's not sustainable. You're gonna be 70 years old. You know how we treat old people in our community. And if you want any sort of high quality of life, you're gonna need people who know and love you. You're gonna want to be healthy. You want to be strong. And so that has to be built on some sort of foundation. And I think we believe that we're gonna be, especially because of Instagram, you got a nice body, you work out all the time, that's your social currency. I get 1,000 likes when I take my shirt off. And we think we're gonna look like that forever. And it's always gonna be somebody younger and hotter, and the beauty standards are gonna change. So
Yeah. That's,
yeah.
yeah. I listen to that and it's like, how do we build not just community, but like deeper community and, understanding what connection can mean, having good ways for that. So, whew, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Every so often I talk to somebody who talks for a living or who's going to talk to every question like, oh, it's here's the answer. And then actually, but there's more and it just keeps going deeper. And I appreciate that so much. So there'll be one more hard question. It's not even that, but World Pride, hey, it's going to be in DC this year.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting couple weeks. It's going to start mid-May. Like Black Pride's going to be part of it. And then ending at the normal and beginning second week of June or whatever. So I've just been asking people, what do you think of Pride? So the event or just the word, what does Pride mean to you?
A money grab. and debauchery. I think that when we were growing up, Pride was really about celebrating. It was like a birthday or something for the community. It was like, oh my God, we have overcome so much throughout this year since last summer that we saw each other. Let us celebrate. Let us hear our authors and our poets. And, we would just, it really fed our soul. And that's really what Pride is. It really was about being proud of yourself and proud of community and proud of our accomplishments. Not to be pessimistic, but I don't know at this point right now, I don't know if our community needs Pride. I think we have to go through some stuff again to understand why Pride is important. And again, to not let it be the money grab that's not benefiting any of us that it has become. I very rarely see any of these businesses who go gay for the month of June create funds that support gay youth, young trans people, create programs for queer families. It's just like, oh, we come shop here and buy this gay mug, buy this gay t-shirt, flag, whatever. And then you don't hear anything else about them supporting the gay community for 364 days. Mm-hmm. And so, again, back then, Pride was about community. It was funded by the community. Like we literally had to get together at like a metropolitan community church, raise money to buy hot dogs and balloons, whatever. And we had events where, our poets or our authors or whatever would come. We had a couple events during the weekend and it was really about Pride. Now it's everything but. So I don't know if we need what we got right now, but I think World Pride is important because it will allow people from other places that can't celebrate Pride where they are to be able to come and be freely who they are and experience what life could be like that. Maybe that will be the inspiration they need to go back home and continue fighting, or see the possibility for themselves or whatever. That's why World Pride is important, but Pride, they don't even bring in gay artists. So we don't need it.
That's fair. And some of the people who lead it and attempting to make it all make sense, they are really wanting to do it, like the local LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Is okay, how do we make sure our businesses are actually there and profiting? Because hey,
Yeah.
there's gonna be a lot of gay and queer dollars showing up in this town, and
Yeah.
every bar, every bar anywhere is gonna be like, hey, we have a gay flag, come and celebrate our pride party. It's like
Yeah.
you never had that flag before. We don't know you.
Why are you not, why are these people who are coming in town, why are they not going to, uh, the fireplace or, what, it's a really great Thirst is another great
Oh yeah,
club in DC right now. Like Black Pride, Thirst, which it will be. I'm pretty
it
sure it
will.
will be.
It will be. It will
It
be.
needs to be cracking,
It's gonna be like, I think DC is gonna do the best, and like the local communities will be doing that. And I was telling people I went to Silver Pride last year, just like for Pride for those over a certain age,
Yeah.
and it looks like during the week, air conditioned, um, free. They had some food, some beer wine. Racine was the MC, and it was just like, oh, I miss these these more community based events, and like just the big crowds and all the good stuff. So I'm looking forward to what can happen.
We need
And
to
it can,
get back to the basics. If we do that, it'll be fine. But this new thing, what it's becoming now, ugh.
yeah. And I pretend I'm ready for it, but I will be. I'll get sleep and make the most of it.
Yeah.
We'll say, and focus on the good community and like build more of that.
Now, I will say, I think Black Pride is closer to, it's a little bit closer to what Pride can be and it's only because they don't got the money to do nothing else. So it got to be about community and about us. But the big Pride it's like going to corporate and clocking in for a day and having a party.
Yeah, it gets to be a lot, but I'm believing in the best, and I know like a lot of the local, like the mayor's office is all about it, and their LGBT affairs office is like, we want to have as many events as possible, and we want more queer representation, like more people in our community to be doing more things. And I like how the business side was also like, our businesses first. Like, how do we make sure that those dollars that come in stay in our pockets, in our
Yeah.
community, in
Yeah.
organizations that are doing the work, who don't get the donations, So we'll see how that goes. But okay. Wow. Okay. Let's go to the rapid fire questions. Please. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. What is something that inspires you and why?
What is something that inspires me and why? Hmm. Past wins, because when facing new challenges, they let you know that those challenges can be overcome too. And when I see young kids out hustling, I love to see, especially all kids, but especially young boys that are ambitious. I always support them because it reminds me of myself when I was growing up.
All right. Next question. What is something that you do for self-care?
Hikes.
Hikes. Okay. I enjoy the outdoors. Do you have a favorite joke? So you're comedians, and this is a little bit harder. So it could be a joke that you tell, or a joke that you've heard, or just your favorite joke.
Oh, I read jokes all the time. There's one that's right I saw it the other day and I thought it was so funny. Uh, it's not coming to mind right now, but I love jokes, period. I think you have to be really smart to understand humor. And so it really is. It'll keep your mind in shape, like just to read them and listen to them. Nothing comes to mind right away because I'm always reading them, but sometimes it'll be the goofiest stuff. You might be up late one night and may have had too much wine to drink and read something like, what do you call the couch potatoes kids? It's tater tots. It's so stupid, but it's like it's humor. I love humor, period.
Yeah, love that. And I love a joke that I can tell my nieces and nephews.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I'm gonna
such a
use.
stupid I mean, I like all of them. I like dirty jokes, stupid jokes, smart jokes, racial jokes. I saw one joke. This is crazy. I saw this one. I like jokes like this too. This is gonna get me in some trouble, but I saw this one about fat people and transphobia. Be like, if you're a fat man, you can't be transphobic because you got a dick and titties too.
Oh,
Yeah, stuff like that is hilarious. I like all of it.
oh man. Yeah. And I love asking people that question because I never know where it goes. And I'm like, worst case scenario, that's a good joke. And every so often someone like laughs before they even like tell me what they're about to say. And then there's like one or two people who laugh and then like, ooh, I can't think of any. Come on, share it. Share it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Two more questions. Okay. Who is a queer change maker that inspires you?
Elin Harris. Elin Harris because of what he did during a time where Black gay sexuality was still very taboo, but he got it right during a really sweet time again in the 90s when this Black cultural renaissance was happening artistically. And he wrote these great stories. And so in these stories, like he talked about how, a guy could be a football player or a basketball player and fall in love with the water boy or the sports reporter, you know, and also be dating a woman or whatever. And I mean, just his stories really open up the minds of the Black community in such a beautiful way that are just legendary. So Elin Harris for sure, because of, yeah, just during that time, just the 90s, just where everything was just grown and sexy and Black. Like he was writing these novels that people were reading and they want more. They wanted to learn more. And I think it was great. We need that now. And it's being done. But I think, you know, this is a time where I think I'm really happy to think there is more opportunity, but I think that it's a bit more challenging because things aren't gate kept. So anybody can do anything. And so there's a certain quality that is not as easy to see. So it takes a little bit more perseverance, but the cream always rises. Um, Essex Hemphill and Joseph Bean, they were writers in the 80s who contributed tremendously just to Black gay liberation. Having those conversations about the church and sex and erotica and things like that. And we're still inspired by them. Marlon Riggs, he has the documentary called Tongues Untied. And I had that documentary on DVD. I need to buy another one. And Black is, Black ain't. I mean, if they wouldn't have died in the 80s and early 90s, just imagine what they could have contributed. But they still gave birth to a movement for sure, artistically.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We get to live on the shoulders of those who came before us and promoting their work and those stories and building off of them.
Yeah.
That's what our purpose is, right? That's what we get to do. And then whoever comes after us will take what we've done and keep moving that forward as well. Okay. Well, the final question of the show, final question of the podcast. Talked so much about your journey. And this question is about that. It's, do you have a piece of advice or word of wisdom that has been either helpful for you in your journey to keep going, and or it's something that you'd like to share with others?
Hmm. It comes down to being committed to your journey through disappointments, through setbacks, through just all the rain that comes with it, because there is a lot of rain. Just be willing to see what's going to happen, because even though it can be very challenging, it's worth it. It's worth it, but you really have to every day make the choice to, because it knocks you down over and 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 over again. It knocks you down emotionally, mentally, financially, but every day you need to be willing to keep getting up off the mat and keep fighting for what you do.
Thank you so very much for taking the time out to have these conversations, to share so many parts of your journey, your story, so many helpful advice, tidbits, and the story that you're writing. I think yours is one of perseverance, ups and downs, making the way better for those who come ahead of us.
That's really what it's become. Is I don't want anybody to. I think if you're talented and you put in the work and you do good stuff and you have good intentions, you should be able to enjoy your life through what you're doing. I mean, sure, life is going to be a challenge, but oh my God.
Yeah, we get to keep pushing through it, and hopefully along the way we learn. Well, I guess we unlearn some things. We unlearn a lot of things that ain't helpful. How about that? And we just learn to, lean on community and build those communities that we see. So thank you for creating the 20s Renaissance that in 7 years, when we're in the 2030s, we'll look back and be like, wow, that was us. That was us. We did it. And we get to do even more. So thanks for this. It's been a good one.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Queer Changemakers. This is Justin, and I hope you are able to get some inspiration and maybe some ideas about how you can take action to create positive change in your life, communities, and beyond. See you next time.